Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this channel. We are still reviewing the book Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This is part 2, and we are going to continue from where we stopped at part 1. While Okonkwo is away in Mbanta, he learns that white men are living in Umuofia with the intent of introducing their religion, Christianity. As the number of converts increases, the foothold of the white people grows and a new government is introduced. The village is forced to respond with either appeasement or resistance to the imposition of the white people's nascent society. Okonkwo's son Nwoye starts getting curious about the missionaries and the new religion. After he is beaten by his father for the last time, he decides to leave his family behind and live independently. He wants to be with the missionaries because his beliefs have changed while being introduced to Christianity by the missionary Mr. Brown. In the last year of his exile, Okonkwo instructs his best friend Obierika to sell off all his yams and hire 2 men to build him 2 huts so he can have a house to go back to with his family. He also holds a great feast for his mother's kinsmen where an elderly attendee bemoans the current state of their tribe and its future. Okonkwo also receives news about the problems in his fatherland due to the missionaries. The Christians disregarded explanations of the area's religious traditions by Igbo people and told them they must give up speaking with ancestors, spirits, and non-Christian gods such as Chukwu. Returning from exile, Okonkwo finds his village changed by the presence of the white men. After a convert commits unmasking an elder as he embodies an ancestral spirit of the clan, the village retaliates by destroying a local Christian church. In response, the district's commissioner representing the colonial government takes Okonkwo and several other native leaders prisoner pending payment of a fine of 200 bags of cowries. Despite the district's commissioner's instructions to treat the leaders of Umuofia with respect, the native court messengers humiliate them, doing things such as shaving their heads and whipping them. As a result, the people of Umuofia finally gather for what could be a great uprising. Okonkwo, a warrior by nature and adamant about following Umuofian custom and tradition, despises any form of cowardice and advocates war against the white men. When messengers of the white government try to stop the meeting, Okonkwo beheads one of them. Because the crowd allows the other messengers to escape and does not fight alongside Okonkwo, he realizes with despair that the people of Umuofia are not going to fight to protect themselves. His society's response to such a conflict, which for so long had been predictable and dictated by tradition, is changing. When the district's commissioner Gregory Irwin comes to Okonkwo's house to take him to court, he finds that Okonkwo killed himself because he saw that he was fighting the battle alone and his tribe had given up. Among his own people, Okonkwo's actions have tarnished his reputation and status, as it is strictly against the teachings of the Igbo to commit suicide. Obierika struggles not to break down as he laments Okonkwo's death. As Irwin and his men prepare to bury Okonkwo, Irwin muses that Okonkwo's death will make an interesting chapter or a reasonable paragraph, at any rate, for his written book, The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger. Characters: Okonkwo, the protagonist, has 3 wives and 10 children and becomes a leader of his clan. His father Unoka was weak and lazy, and Okonkwo resents him for his weaknesses. He enacts traditional masculinity. Okonkwo strives to make his way in a culture that traditionally values manliness. Ekwefi is Okonkwo's second wife. Although she falls in love with Okonkwo after seeing him in a wrestling match, she marries another man because Okonkwo was too poor to pay her bride price at the time. 2 years later, she runs away to Okonkwo's compound one night and later marries him. She receives severe beatings from Okonkwo just like his other wives, but unlike them, she is known to talk back to Okonkwo. Unoka is Okonkwo's father, who defied typical Igbo masculinity by neglecting to grow yams, take care of his wives and children, and pay his debts before he dies. Nwoye is Okonkwo's son, about whom Okonkwo worries, fearing that he will become like Unoka. Similar to Unoka, Nwoye does not subscribe to the traditional Igbo become like Unoka. Similar to Unoka, Nwoye does not subscribe to the traditional Igbo view of masculinity being equated to violence. Rather, he prefers the stories of his mother. Nwoye connects to Ikemefuna, who presents an alternative to Okonkwo's rigid masculinity. He is one of the early converts to Christianity and takes on the Christian name Isaac, an act which Okonkwo views as a final betrayal. Ikemefuna is a boy from the Mbaino tribe. His father murders the wife of an Umuofia man, and in the resulting settlement of the matter, Ikemefuna is put into the care of Okonkwo. By the decision of Umuofia authorities, Ikemefuna is ultimately killed, an act which Okonkwo does not prevent and even participates in. Lest he seems feminine and weak, Ikemefuna became very close to Nwoye, and Okonkwo's decision to participate in Ikemefuna's death takes a toll on Okonkwo's relationship with Nwoye. Ezima is Okonkwo's favorite daughter and the only child of his wife Ekwefi. Ezima, the crystal beauty, is very much the antithesis of a normal woman within the culture, and Okonkwo routinely remarks that she would have made a much better boy than a girl. Obierika is Okonkwo's best friend from Umuofia. Unlike Okonkwo, Obierika thinks before he acts and is therefore less violent and arrogant like Okonkwo. He is considered the voice of reason in the book and questions certain parts of their culture, such as the necessity to exile Okonkwo after he unintentionally kills a boy. Obierika's own son, Maduka, is greatly admired by Okonkwo for his wrestling prowess. Ogbuefi Eze-Odo is one of the elders of Umuofia. Mr. Brown is an English missionary who comes to Umuofia. He shows kindness and compassion towards the villagers and makes an effort to understand the Igbo beliefs. Mr. Smith is another English missionary sent to Umuofia to replace Mr. Brown after he falls ill. In stark contrast to his predecessor, he remains strict and zealous towards the Africans. People ask, what is the main summary of Things Fall Apart? The Things Fall Apart book details the life of Okonkwo, his struggle with his father's reputation, the standards of masculinity, and the cultural practices of his clan, all mirror the hardships and eventual destruction of his clan. Things Fall Apart author Chinua Achebe provides a broad view of Igbo culture. What is the main point of Things Fall Apart? As a story about a culture on the verge of change, Things Fall Apart deals with how the prospect and reality of change affects various characters. The tension about whether change should be privileged over tradition often involves questions of personal status. What does Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe symbolize? The locusts in Things Fall Apart symbolize colonists who come to the area. Locusts arrive in Umuofia, eventually covering the land and destroying the landscape. The section of the novel involving the locusts foreshadows later English settlers' arrival, which results in the slow destruction of the local way of life. And finally, my dear listeners, we have come to the end of reviewing Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them at the comment section. Don't forget to leave a like on this video and also tap the subscribe button so as the notification bell so that any